Reverend Duleep De Chikera is the 14th Anglican Bishop of Colombo. He was inaugurated in 2001. Educated at Royal College, Colombo, he gained his training for the ministry at Theological College in Pilimatalawa, earning bachelor's in theology and thereafter earning a master's from Cable College, Oxford. He had served first as a chaplain and then as the sub-warden of St. Thomas's College, Mount Lavinia from 1983 to 1989 before being consecrated as a bishop. A strong advocate for building interfaith relationships, Bishop De Chikera counts among some of his best friends, members of the Buddhist clergy and of the other religions. During his interview post-retirement, this is what he said. I quote, "It is to the advantage of all the people if our religious leaders can cooperate and work together. The united voice of all our religions has much to contribute towards reconciliation." Unquote. May I now invite Reverend Duleep De Chikera to address all of you. Over to you, Father.
My dear members of the clergy, my dear Deepal and Sunitra, and my dear friends. When Deepal asked me whether I would be willing to speak a few words on this occasion, I immediately said yes. I hadn't read the book, but I knew the man. And when I received a copy of the final draft, I realized that I had not been disappointed. Living together is a resource for all those of us interested in interreligious interaction. And with time, we will know whether this book will earn a place in that vast library of interreligious material that the world has produced and that the world knows. This is why the event this evening is more than the launching of a book. It is a celebration of a gift. Certainly a celebration of a gift to all Sri Lankans, and possibly a gift to interested persons in other parts of the world. I have three broad comments on living together. The first is that this is an extremely relevant book. The theme that runs through from cover to cover is the story of a group of people who from time to time came together wanting deliberately to understand the other person's religion. And to do this in a spirit of respect and sensitivity and with dignity. But as you read the book, you discover a sense of rhythm. There is the encounter coming together, and then there is separation, each feeding the other. Now, this is why I find the book relevant for this country. Except for some districts and provinces where a monoculture prevails, several of us in this country have a constant encounter with the religious other day in and day out. So whether it is in the neighborhood, in the marketplace, in the bus, on the train, in our schools, in our hospitals, in our universities, in trade and commerce, in parliament and so on, the people of different religions that make up this nation have opportunities to encounter each other. There's a meeting, not as intensive as the one that you describe in your book, and then there's a party. Now, what this book provokes Sri Lankans of all religions to do is to try to use these encounters when we meet one another in somewhat the same spirit in which this small group would meet. My sister's husband passed some weeks ago. Theirs was a Christian-Buddhist marriage. And on that occasion, a Buddhist monk spoke some words. Some Christians heard these words and picked up an interest in the Buddhist understanding of the afterlife. And that in turn led to questions and further clarifications. So, my dear friends, what we need to learn to do as we pick up one of the core messages of this book is to use our encounter with one another in small groups, in families, in the neighborhood, in places of work, as students on the campus, as professionals, to use those opportunities to talk about each other's religion and our understanding of life. So you attend a wedding. Talk about the concept of family in Islam and Buddhism and Hinduism. Ask questions with respect. Receive explanations with respect. Someone calls at the door for assistance. Talk about the understanding of your religion on wealth and poverty. What does Buddhism have to say about tanha and accumulation? What has Christianity got to say about greed and about distribution of wealth? Or for instance, we have an election that's coming around the corner. Buddhists and Hindus and Muslims and Christians must exchange our ideas on governance. What do you think? What do you think? What do I think about the responsibility of our legislators and so on? We have a tendency in this country to cultivate a kind of a courteous aloofness. I respect you, so I will not ask a question about your religion. The book says that's not enough. Have the courage in small groups where we are known and trusted to begin a conversation. The second strength of this book is that it is extremely timely. You know, living together in one country has never been an easy thing. We've had our tensions amongst the religions in the past. We currently have tensions, and we will have our tensions. Hostility, aggressive agendas, they upset people. And what has our response been to date? A worthy response of tolerance. So you ask a Buddhist or a Christian, they would say, well, that's the answer. Tolerance. Be patient. Let the other person have his or her own little thing in his or her own little corner. But even this strength of tolerance is running out of time. It's not working. The book tells us there's another step. What the book says is, these people of different religions, having come together, have become stronger and more faithful adherents of their own religion because of the presence of the other. So I become a better Christian because of my Buddhist neighbor, my Muslim neighbor, my Hindu neighbor. If by some chance we lived in a monoculture where there was one religion, we would be the poorer. This is a blessing. And we need to extract the strength of this blessing by interacting with our neighbor of a different religion. Let me give you a couple of examples. In Christianity, one's human neighbor has to be served. So we talk about loving your neighbor. In Buddhism, it is compassion for all living beings. Includes the neighbor but goes beyond. Now, when I converse with my Buddhist neighbor, I sense that however worthy it is that we must love our neighbor, there's something lacking. What about the rest of life? And so through that conversation, I go back to the Bible and I discover that it is all there, but it has remained dormant. Creation theology, right from the beginning, has told Jews and Christians, care for the environment, protect all life, engage in ecological justice. Now that door may not have been opened in my life if not for the fact that my Buddhist neighbor was able to make that contribution. Another example. We have all our lives lived either on a campus or down a street where we could hear the bells of the church. 6 o'clock in the morning, 12 noon, and 6 in the evening. That's called the Angelus. And when those bells ring, we are supposed to reflect in intercessory prayers for people of the world. For 1 year, we lived away from hearing distance of church bells in Rajagiriya. I missed the bells. But there was a gift. Our house was located between two mosques. And every day, those mosques would call people to prayer. And I found myself beginning to use that call to prayer to do what I did 3 times a day. Of course, Islam asked me to do it 5 times a day. I become a better disciple of Jesus because of my Hindu, my Buddhist, my Muslim neighbor. One of the greatest Christian theologians, a man who has worked on Christian-Buddhist dialogue for decades, Paul Nitter, a Jesuit Roman Catholic priest, summed up these thoughts in a book that he wrote a few years ago. The book got him into trouble with the church hierarchy, but it was well received by people engaged in interfaith work all over the world. The title says it all. Without the Buddha, I may not be a Christian. Radical, strong, but a language that some of us understand. The third thrust of your book, Deepal, is that it brings us an uncomfortable challenge. While your group appreciated dialogue, while many in this country appreciate dialogue, while many around the world appreciate dialogue, there are others who do not. And that's not a kind of a neutral opposition. There are those in the church, like there are those in Buddhism and Hinduism and Islam, who dislike and distrust interreligious dialogue. They raise questions. They think those engaged in interreligious dialogue are traitors. One of our speakers touched on that. How can you be a Christian and appreciate Buddhism? How can you be a Muslim and appreciate Hinduism? That's the question they ask. And they don't want it. What they would like to see is a monoculture. And the word that describes people like that is fundamentalism, extremists. And you know what the extremists want? A world in which the only type is my type. So you either convert or you eliminate. Now, what is the bearing of this book on people like that, who still share a common religious space with us? I have members in the Christian church, in my church, who resent interreligious dialogue. What do? Do I fight them? Do I ignore them? No. The spirit of this book says, engage. However difficult it is. Again and again, be patient, be respectful, but also be strong. Take on the extremists and try to persuade them that the best option for life as humans, living in interreligious societies like ours, is that we must engage in dialogue. We retain our identity, but that identity grows to the extent that we interact with each other with respect. Deepal, I mentioned this when we were having a cup of tea. I don't know whether it was you or whether it was Sunitra. Writing a book is like bringing another wife into your house. There's a demand on your time and energy. I know Sunitra has been extremely patient, and she has been one of those who has been encouraging you to write. But now that wife has left. And I'm sure you sense that relief, a sense of accomplishment, and you deserve that. I hope the book will be translated. This is not a book just for English audiences only. And I hope it will reach the corners of this country in the Sinhala and the Tamil languages. Take a break. You deserve one, but you must come back and keep writing. The teaching of the Bible on good work is that the reward for good work is more work. Thank you.